My personally, I always felt like as much as I love people reaching out to me, I sometimes feel like I'm a bottleneck, right?
How do we grow for the next 5 to 10 years, right? And
Exactly.
and that's really the vision of the direction that we're going, is not just short-term fixes, but long-term strategic points
Mhm.
that allows us to grow unimpeded.
Hello and namaste. This is Preeti Pandey Adhikari, and this is TGND Beats Diaspora Ka Kurakani, where we showcase global Nepalis that have achieved amazing things. And today we have somebody returning to our podcast. Sabin, welcome.
Thank you very much, really glad to be back.
For people that follow TGND, you're very familiar face. That if somebody's watching this or hearing this for the first time, let me quickly give your intro. Sabin Pradhan is the lead data scientist, supply chain and planning at General Mills. At TGND, he has a lot of different roles and he's doing them amazingly well. He's our director of operations, which means that he manages all the 14 hubs that we have. He also co-leads our data science hub, which is one of the most popular hubs or groups that we have. So Sabin, welcome. It's been a while.
It has lot of things have happened in that time.
So tell us. We want to know what have been the changes on your professional and personal side.
Yeah, I think the last time we did the podcast, I want to say it was like 6 months, if not
I
if not
think
a
so,
little bit
right?
more ago. Since then, I changed roles, as you mentioned. So I was a data science manager, and now I'm kind of getting back into the technical space, doing more of the technical lead data scientist, individual contributor work. I'm also I got married recently, so early May I got married. So I was saying to Siobhan, I got promoted from fiance to husband, or at least that's what the LinkedIn post is probably going to say. Um, but yeah, those are two main, and then TGND, right? Like, there's so many things that have happened in that time in terms of some of the evolution pieces, and how we're thinking of scaling this next chapter of
Right.
TGND. So I'm sure we're going to talk more about that later in our conversation.
No, yes, very exciting. My late I remember asking you all the time, can I come to your wedding? Can I come to your wedding? So whenever Sabin decides to have a big public wedding or a party, we're all going. So that's
I'm
that's
starting to save up right now. Whatever
well,
that.
I'm super excited. So whenever that happens, I think we want to celebrate you in whatever, in your personal space, Bunny. So
Thank
that's super exciting. One quick question before we move on to TGND and so on. What has been the biggest change for you? The individual contributor versus manager, is very different, right? People don't
Yeah.
even realize that. What have been some of the biggest changes for you, this Kalani?
Yeah. Moving from a manager to individual contributor, definitely the technical expertise part, right? So most of my earlier this year was spent, hands-on coding. So a lot of SQL, a lot of Python. So getting back into the swing of just, knowing certain libraries like the back of my hand. That's one of the challenges. With a manager role, you're definitely very focused on people, right? So, like, is your team, like, what capacity is your team operating? How are you resourcing it? What's the optimum way to resource projects? Versus from an individual contributor role, it's more tactical in terms of what are my project goals? How are we delivering, this particular product?
Mhm.
And what are the resources I need on
Right.
my product team to be able to deliver that. So it's a slightly different perspective, in terms of how the work actually happens. Yeah.
Right, right. And just to follow up, do you think that as people navigate this, right? For a lot of people, they start off as individual contributor, become managers, and then, they usually have a choice in terms of if they want to remain individual contributors or if they want to take on management roles. What is your advice, just in terms of if somebody's at that crossroads? What would your advice be?
I so this might be dicey because I would always say do what you haven't done before, because you
Right.
can always fall back on what is familiar, right?
Exactly.
And so when I kind of went the manager route, that was at that time that was one of the options for me.
Right.
That was new. That was something that I hadn't done.
Right.
And also it's also what opportunity presents itself. So at that time in my career, that opportunity presented itself to me. So I definitely grabbed it. And then I spent 2 years in that manager role, managing people, helping projects out, kind of helping defining scope, and so on and so forth. And then, this new opportunity presented itself where it was like, hey, let's, move. There's an opportunity to move to a individual contributor role. And again, since I hadn't done, high level, because I'd done more very much like a senior data scientist type role before. I was like, this is new to what I've been doing new to compared to what I've been doing in the last 2 years. So let me try that out, right? Let me see if that's something that I'm interested in. And so far it's I'm learning a lot. And that's the part that I always tell people is put yourself in positions where you can learn. And the rest, I feel like will take care of itself, because that growth mindset is probably the most important thing to cultivate. Because if you can cultivate the growth mindset, you can cultivate whatever skills you need for the job.
Exactly. Right. No, you're so right. And I think just being open-minded, right, to that change, because if you don't enjoy it, you can always go back to, to either, right? That I think unless you try it, you won't know. So good advice. Sabin, now let's move on to the big changes coming at TTND, right? There's a lot happening. Let's first talk about memberships and paid memberships. It's a big change for TGND. We've never done that. So what is your thought process behind it? Behind moving to paid memberships.
So I know for the last year and a half, we've been experimenting with keeping things free and as accessible as possible. And we've had great success in that, right? Like we've been able to build a community. We've built a community on Slack. We've built a community on WhatsApp. We've built a community on Eventbrite. So that's where our event. And then we're using Zoom for our events. And so we wanted to test the idea out, saying, can we build an online, vibrant Nepali community, a community for professionals, a community that can kind of enhance or that can showcase and act as a platform for Nepali excellence.
Right.
And we were able to do that.
Okay.
However, one of the things that you probably noticed is I mentioned multiple different platforms, right? So our community is very separated depending on how you engage, right? And while that is, there can be bonuses to that, the problem with that is it's hard to maintain these platforms, right?
Exactly.
From a scalability perspective, like we hit the max member on Slack and like going to the next level would be exponentially more expensive. And so one of the things that I know we were exploring was, is there a way to bring together all of these separate communities into a consolidate them into one platform, right? And that's where, and we had to do our homework. We went to Slack, we said, hey, how much is it going to cost? And that cost, we were like, okay, that's fairly expensive for what we're trying to do. Plus, it doesn't meet like all the different, like the event planning side of things, the like online networking side of things, the mentorship side of things. So that's where Hivebright kind of came as an option that was friendly to the budget that we were looking to operate on. It was an easy next step that can allow us to consolidate parts of our community without sacrificing engagement. It allowed us to be both, online, like desktop and mobile, right? And the mobile part, I'm sure that's coming. So folks, keep an eye out for that. And then the other part too is, if we do have engagement, right, we still want TGND to be able to stand on its own feet, right? And so while platform does cost money. We also want it to be self-sufficient, right? And that's one of the things I think in our first, like the phase one of TGND, that we one of the assumptions that we de-risked, right, was that there is a critical mass of people who are really, really engaged, and we do have services that we can provide that can allow us to charge for paid membership, yet provide a lot of value. And that's just a part of this evolution and scale that we're trying out with TGND.
Exactly. And that's so right? I mean, the reason it took us almost 1.5 years to come to this decision was because first, the big test that we needed to do was that Nepalis wanted to network with other Nepalis, right? And, we were able to validate that hypothesis, right? When we saw that in, in-person events, virtual events, I mean, virtual, you'd remember, Sabin, especially the data science ones, we would have 100 or so signups, right? Incredible. Even non-Nepalis would show up, which was so amazing to see. And in person, Jun city ma, Jun country ma garda pani, we would see like lots of people showing up, right? Just finding out about us and so on. And now we need to have one centralized platform, right? One of the things, I'm also realizing is, of course, WhatsApp, Slack, all of them have their pros and cons, and they've helped us, but people are distributed. Okay? Our aim was to bring people together, and we've been able to do that to a certain extent. But there's people that prefer WhatsApp. There's people that prefer Slack, which means that there's this still silos happening. So even in terms of our volunteers, it's a lot of work to update WhatsApp, update Slack, and, Itapati Eventbrite, and, our social media and so on. So we're hoping that you're a centralized platform, that sort of makes it, alikiti, like you said, scalable, and even in terms of efficiency, right? I think we need to be a little better ROI, I guess, for everybody's effort.
And that's the thing, right? Like the constraints. So one constraint was the scalability piece, right? So like, it's like, how do we scale our company? How do we build more of an online presence? And then the second part is, with scalability and the constraints around scalability came efficiency for us to say, hey, let's regroup. Let's rethink how we're growing, and not only set ourselves up for how are we going to grow for next month. And in Slack, I remember always texting you or getting text to say, hey, can you give me the link to the Slack? Because we can't send online invites. To how do we grow for the next 5 to 10 years, right? Exactly. And that's really the vision of the direction that we're going, is not just short-term fixes, but long-term strategic points that allows us to grow unimpeded.
Right. No, that's so true. And I think another, really important factor is also that we know that Nepalis want to network with each other. There is definitely a lot of potential, right? But we also want Nepalis to invest in ourselves, right? The reason we're, moving into paid memberships isn't to generate profit and, all of that, right? We want it to be sustainable, but we also want people to not be passive members, okay, right? And we're hoping that this, whatever minimum amount we're charging, it sort of incentivizes people to say, okay, more $5 per month, so yeah, $10 per month, so what am I getting, right? We're providing value on our end, but I want that pressure from people as well. Okay, I want people to be really intentional and say, okay, let's make it better. Let's not just sit and, I'm hoping it also does that dual benefit money, okay?
No, 100%. I really, really agree with that. Because one, it's the accountability piece of like, what are you giving us? Right. But also with the funding, it allows us to do much bigger events. Because previously we may have done like a big event once every maybe 3 months, 4 months, sometimes like 6 months, we would do like a big event. And one of the things that we've kind of discussed already is like, how do we make that more frequent? Now that we have a little bit of funding, and especially from like post the operational costs, how do we really, take this platform of Nepali excellence to the next level, and do bigger events where people can really engage and get their money's worth, right? Like whether it's through mentorship programs, right? Which that's the part I am personally really excited about as I was setting up the platform in terms of how do we provide mentorship and connect, like have smart algorithms connect students with industry mentors, right? So that they're getting the exposure that they're getting the exposure to get a leg up in a very, very competitive job market. Second piece is, especially with a lot of there is a whole generation of Nepali professionals that are executives that are leading big companies, big teams that are starting their own companies. How do we take that knowledge, right, and create programming around it? And I think with the funding that we're going to be getting, that's going to be something that's going to really accelerate how the Nepali community grows in the next couple of years. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really, really excited for this next chapter.
No, I love your passion, Sabin, and I think that's super important for us to funnel that passion right through, for people to understand why we're doing that. It's not that we woke up one day and say, okay, let's charge people. Bhandapani, I think it's very intentional. We've done a lot of homework and a lot of math. We're charging the minimum that we can, right? And even with that, we are trying to provide as much value as we can. So all of that is there. Tara, timro hisabले चाहिँ, so what are people actually getting out of paid memberships?
Yeah. So one of the things obviously is with paid memberships, most of the events that we're going to do is going to be free to our members, or it's going to be a very subsidized cost. So that's one. If you're not a member, you can still attend, like most of our events, if not at least at this point in time, all of our events. There are certain events that are going to be exclusive, but for minimal cost, right? And so one is that paywall events. The other part is with paid membership, it allows us to do things like the mentorship program that I mentioned earlier, where we're able to buy specific modules from HiveBright that allows us to create more connections within our community. Exactly. At the end of the day, we are a community company, right? Like we are a nonprofit that looks to connect Nepalis with people that can help support them, help lift them, but also provide the mentor the opportunity to take someone under their wing and develop others and kind of solidify their expertise and become thought leaders in their space, right? And so with paid membership, I think that's another level that we can explore and help bolster the community.
No, I think there's so much to be done. I think that's what is really exciting. Just for everybody, we've just rolled out two very basic ones, right? In terms of students, working professionals, that are like Sabin said, there's so much really tailoring that we can do in terms of entrepreneurs. They can thought leaders, people that are mid-managers, executives. I think there's a place for everybody at TGND, and Bistare, these membership tiers are going to help us even filter that. Okay? Number 8, with any other platform like Slack and WhatsApp, it's everybody's lumped together. We just see people's names it's hard to keep track of hundreds and thousands of members and know, 5% of these are entrepreneurs. This is what people are interested in. What I'm really excited about is everybody almost gets a profile. We are able to see what people are really interested in, hopefully really curate our programming, our offerings. So the part is, again, a lot of work that are exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think at the end of the day, right, and this is the data science in me, having that data gives us power to then, segment our community to say, here's the experts that, here's the data science experts versus here's the entrepreneur experts. Because I think one of the things that you had mentioned was there's so many founders, Nepali founders who gone to run successful companies,
Exactly.
some of which have IPO'd, right? And we have that experience in our community, right? If we can get those thought leaders and those industry leaders to impart their experience in terms of an entrepreneur that's just starting out, that could help accelerate their program. Like, and one of the things, and one of the really big reasons that I really like TGND is, like, one of my philosophies personally is, how do I get someone to do like what it took me 5 years to do it within 3 or even 2, right? Where I can help. And that's why I'm excited about this new phase in TGND, because I think that is very, very possible.
Exactly.
And that's already been happening. Like, we've already been doing a lot of programming around it, but this like takes it to a whole new level with much more personalization, much more customization, and allows us, like, with the funds we get, allows us to program around that too, to build like these specialized communities.
Right. No, I agree with all of it. My personally, I always felt like, as much as I love people reaching out to me, I sometimes feel like I'm a bottleneck, right? People say, okay, can you connect me to somebody in, I don't know, Germany or somewhere, or somebody that is in is a filmmaker and so on, right? And I would sort of find out and connect them and so on. But what I'm also hoping we are able to do is, through this new platform with the visibility, like, I wish we could show people this, what it would look like and so on, but just this world map of where all Nepalis are. People are able to find people themselves and reach out and so on. So there is no bottleneck there. It's seamless, right, in terms of that communication. And one thing that, and tell me what your views on this as well, Sabin. One sort of thing that I always feel like is, of course, there's LinkedIn, right? And the question sometimes people give is, okay, there's LinkedIn thani in terms of a professional network. Do we need our own Nepali network? Isn't it duplication of work? But one thing I really believe in is, over the last 1.5 years, 2.2 years, we've built a lot of trust within our community, right? Yeah. So, LinkedIn Mapani, of course, you can reach out to people. There is a 50% chance in terms of, if people will respond to you, if people will give you time. But through TGNDs, I think there's been a culture of people opting in, okay? So when people opt in to be part of TGND, they're sort of saying, okay, I'm going to help somebody that's going to reach out. I'm going to take a call, or I'm going to do that. So I'm hoping becomes a good thing that continues, okay?
Yeah, no, and the other thing that I think we don't really talk about is just finding Nepalis, right? Because it's, with LinkedIn, we are a drop in an ocean. Like, Nepal is not a big country. There's not a lot of Nepalis, right? Like, and so trying to find other Nepalis, like, once you found them, that's great. But even finding them is the issue.
And it's like, just
that's the issue
or something like that, right? It's like,
Yeah. Like, the way I find Nepalis, I go to the local Nepali restaurant, and then they tell me about people. And it's like, okay, like, well, that's a good, but how do we take that, like, micro, like how do we take these really small communities and make that accessible? And I think that's where TGND adds so much value, is that now you don't have to sift through multiple layers to find one person. You can find like hundreds of people in your area who's doing the type of work that you're looking to do. And it doesn't even have to be in your area, but, like, you can find a community of Nepalis that, do the things that you're doing that might be a little bit ahead from where you're at, and that can help you learn the steps on getting to where they're at.
Of course. And I think kati times a pleasant surprise bhanne ki it's a new step for our diaspora, where a lot of people would be like, okay, you're a successful Nepali, like, they had reached out, never got a response, and then at our event and so on, they would meet them, and these people are nice and friendly, and people are shocked. Okay? When I reached out without knowing them, I wouldn't even get a response, or people wouldn't even accept your LinkedIn request or whatever it is, right? But in person, people are so accessible, so nice, so friendly, so helpful, right? त्यो बिचको barriers in terms of that complete stranger, I think we're removing that. Okay.
Yeah, because you have the TGND stamp that says, "Hey, I'm a part of a community that is goal, like we're goal oriented, right? Like we're trying to make, do things better, trying to build a better future,
Right.
and once you have that stamp of approval, that allows people to say, yes, I will join you in this journey to create that better tomorrow, right? For Nepalis here, and all around.
No, I like that, the stamp of approval, the gold ke bhanne stamp of approval, right?
Golden. I don't know.
No, it is. Theo is something that I think all of us.
I think it boils down to the philosophy side of India.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I think it really.
No, let's move on to a little bit in terms of with all the changes. We're also trying to really, hone in on one of our values. We added one new value, accountability, early this year. And I think everything we're doing now sort of points towards that, right? We really want to encourage accountability at TGND. Timro tarfabara, with your role and, what you see at TGND, how are you sort of thinking of accountability and how we can infuse that?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of accountability in a couple of different directions, right? One is accountability for anyone that joins our community. We as TGND are trying to build something, like we're trying to build a community of talented Nepali professionals. We're trying to be a platform for Nepali excellence. And so with someone being a part of this community, that's one of the accountability pieces is take advantage of this so that you can also be a part of, Nepali excellence.
Okay.
And how can we bring your Nepali excellence to help other Nepalis who might need some help and helping lift that community? The second piece that I think of accountability is in part of the paid membership, right? Like, how can we build that accountability from our audiences and to hold us accountable, right?
Exactly.
In terms of, hey, I'm not like, whether if we're not providing the value, I think we're providing a lot, but if you feel like there's certain pieces that are not being met, talk to us, tell us, let us know, like let our leaders know, so that we may be able to provide that level of service, right? And really find communities that need help so that we may be able to shine that light and get the broader Nepali community to help, right? And then the third piece is within our leaders as well, right? How do we build accountability within our leaders to give them the opportunity to build out their specific segments,
Right.
And take learnings from, take learnings, for example, in the hubs, take learnings from the data science side to help out, maybe like the sustainability side, right? Take things from like the New York chapter to maybe help out the Glasgow chapter, right? And so, and that's where the accountability piece is like, you don't have to recreate the wheel. We've already created templates. Here you go. Here's a template, but we'll hold you accountable to,
of course,
like see that through the finish line.
Right. And I think Theo is in general important as well, right? I think, a lot of people, it's so easy, I think, in general for all of us to sign up for something but never completing it, right? But I think the value for us is, okay, we're all accountable to our community, each one of us. And I think on the other side, the community is also accountable for us, right? So it has to be, you can't just be just say and do things without being really intentional, being serious about it, being committed to it, and so on, right? And I think one thing just need to add is life happens. We all know it. It is hard. Especially for me as a founder, I so appreciate every volunteer that's a part of TG and continues to be a part of it. But life also happens, right? There's a lot of hardships. त्यसै पनि with family, with work, with school, it is hard. So we understand all of it. But I think accountability सँगसँगै we also want to infuse communication, okay? right? I think it's you're still accountable if you communicate in advance, in communicate to whoever needs to know about what's going on, right? It's not accountable. It's if you just ghost people, right? And I think PO is something that we need to unlearn as a community panine, right? In general, whether you have a leadership role or not, I think whether you're in school, whether you're working, just ghosting people, just like disappearing is not going to help anyways, right? In the long run, it does not help. So hopefully we can, have that culture where people show up, and especially if they say they're going to show up, they do show up, right?
Yeah, no, and I think the other side too, like with accountability, the community part of it is if you're going through hard times too, TGND allows you to find someone to lean on, right? Build relationships, and that's where I'm like, leverage the community that we've been able to build, because that can allow you to explore. I kind of think about brain trust, right? Like creating a brain trust around. So one of the things before, and this was before I joined TGND, one of the things that I was kind of exploring in my own kind of personal side was creating a brain trust of friends, essentially trusted advisors, if you will. And people can do this at any point in their career, right? Like, you don't have to be like a top executive to do this. It's just identifying people within your network, and building that relationship where they can advise you on whether it's personal things or professional things. And I've been fortunate to have like friends and this brain trust concept, right, that has helped me out previously in my career. And so leveraging that to then keep yourself accountable too.
Right. Exactly. No, Theo is super important, and I hope we see more and more of that. And I think just to add up, I think the accountability also comes to community bandakiri, even me as a founder, right? So what we're also hoping to do is, once we finish this quarter, almost the financial transparency as well, right? So that we also are not like, okay, whatever, we're not going to show our books bandakiri. We want to be fully transparent in terms of what is the revenue we're getting. And what are we spending on? And even in terms of what's left, how are we sort of managing that, right? I think that's something that I'm striving towards, and I'm hoping this actually helps us, showcase that steady revenue as well as, hamra expenses kati cha, ke cha bhanera, how do we move forward bhanera. That's something, that's that accountability piece that I'm taking forward, right? So it's not just money coming in. We want to really be very visible and transparent in terms of everything.
And the other part to that too, and that's one of the reasons why, I think the open town halls that we're doing is so important, is because it allows us to hear from folks in our community to say, here's what we've done. Like, what are some things that you would like to do, right? Like, what are some things that needs to be done? What are some problems that maybe like the experiences on our current team doesn't have that, and that we're completely missing, right? And holding, like, not only like holding like from an accountability perspective, but also from a how do we create change, and how do we hold ourselves accountable to be the change, like, kind of quoting Gandhi, be the change that we want to see.
Of course.
By like bringing problems to light that otherwise may not have seen the light. So,
No. I so hear you, and I think I would say one of the things is we can't keep on comparing our diaspora to Indians and Chinese and every other diaspora in the world when we're not doing the work, when we're not investing in ourselves, when we're not saying nobody is going to give us a perfect community on a silver platter. That is not going to happen, right? And we've seen that hasn't happened last decades, right? Bistare, we're trying to also, I think, infuse best practices from other organizations that are doing things well. Right. So it's a work in progress. So we want people to give us feedback, be a part, help us, change things, right? I mean, it's a short time, but we've seen some good things come out of it. That we need more people. We need, I think, even a diverse set of people to, push it further.
100%. I know. 100%. Yeah, no. And that's the thing, I think, with with TGND and kind of how we've grown in the past couple of years is like the only constant has been change, right? Like in terms of how do we look at the problems that we have and solving them, and then we'll find new problems and then we'll solve those, right? Like and then we talked about scalability, right? And then platform management, and then we're solving that to be like, okay, how do we make it self-sufficient so that it can run on its own? And then we're solving that, and then there's probably gonna be, we would have, and I really like to say, I heard this in a podcast, is like you would have the privilege to solve more complex problems, right? You start out with having the privilege to solve simple problems, and as you graduate, you keep on solving more and more complex problems. And even in the last year, like, being a part of it for the year and a half, I think 2 years at this point, I lose track of like exactly when, but it was like, okay, how do we do one talk, right? Like how do you do one data science career conversation, to then how do we build a community for data science, right? And then how do we build other chapters, right? And so it's the complexity of the problem shifts, right? Where we master the simple stuff, and then we gain the privilege to solve more complex problems. And in the last 2.5 years, the problems we were solving at the beginning to like the problems we're solving now, where we were able to do an event at the Nepali consulate and have the prime minister come in, like the Nepali prime minister, and then have that level of influence, right? And that level of audience in terms of how to influence, like economic policy, social policy, entrepreneurial policy. Like that's a whole another layer of problems that we've done the work and had the privilege to kind of get there.
Exactly. And you're so right. I think, we've also been, I mean, of course, there's been a lot of hard work of, all the volunteers, everybody that's been a part of it, that it's been, these are great problems to solve, to have the privilege of solving, right? It means that we're still like, 1.5 years in, 2 years in, we're not saying, oh, there's just 5 people in it, right? There's no interest. People, it's like incredible in terms of this energy that it has, right?
Okay.
And I feel like, I've recently been, attending and collaborating with so many other organizations which are doing incredible, right? But this energy that TGND has, I think it also has the potential to light up so many other incredible organizations, get through collaborations, partnership, which is so insane. Right? Organizations that have been there for 20, 30 years. We have something that spark or a positive spark, so that could actually benefit a larger group money. So we definitely need to keep that fire burning. So Theo is, So Theo, again, lots of work that are very exciting. Sabin, I mean, you answered a little bit of this anyways, right? Want to deep dive a little bit more into this. You've been a part of TGND for almost 2 years, right? What makes you still contribute, still lead, still be a part of it? Not just be a part of it, be such an active part of it, somebody that I can rely on, somebody that the community looks forward to, sort of, as one of our leaders.
Yeah, no. One of the things that I think about, and this was even before TGND, like I've always been passionate about connecting people, right? Like I think back to my time at university, where it started out with a friend of mine said, hey, a physics club has an opening for their exam, and then kind of starting out there in terms of like building that community. So like connecting people has always been a passion. And one of the things, as I've progressed in my career, I've seen the power of networking. I've seen how much of a difference meeting the right person can make, right? And specifically with and it kind of goes to our name, is like with the Nepali community abroad, the word diaspora really does make sense, because we're not very connected. Like there are pockets of good connection, but overall, we haven't been as connected. And for a country that has the most per capita of students exported to the United States, right? And I think that was our Chicago event with
exactly.
I forget. I think Don
Lou,
mentioned
right?
that.
The assistant secretary.
That's that's not like that. That's big numbers. So a huge portion of Nepali talent is coming there, but we haven't been able to really connect the dots, right? And as a data scientist, my whole thing is connecting dots. And so connecting.
This is perfect for you, sir.
Exactly. and the power of that network, the latent, like the potential, right? We need to act on it to actually bring it, like to materialize that. But that's where I think TGND, why I'm really passionate about TGND is taking that potential energy, right, of impact and converting it through action, through events that we do, through networking, through whether it's chapter level networking, or it's networking through our hub events, where we can connect Nepali professionals all across the world, and like push them towards a common goal. And that's what excites me. That's why I've been I'm energized. Year and a half, 2 years, in terms of just what we can do.
No, awesome. Two questions for you, Sabin. One is, अहिले आएर सोच्दाखेरि TGND perspective, if you could, ask for a wish, भन्ने कि something regarding TGND, keep them like something on your wish list, what would it be?
One of the things immediately that comes to mind, and this is more of a realistic wish list, is really getting our mentorship program off and running, because I think that in and of itself will provide so much value. And I know in our first rollout we're going to do student working professional mentorship, but I think working professional is not a monolith, right? We have early career professionals, mid-career, executives. And there's so much, and so, second layer would be, how do we connect within the working professionals? How do we connect, early careers with mid-careers with more experience, like executive level folks, and provide that connection. The second thing would be special group programming. So, like we do professional hubs and stuff like that, but how do we do kind of much more in-depth events with maybe like founders, for example, right? Where kind of like programming that the entrepreneurship hub is doing, but much more like expanding that even more, where we could at some point do accelerators and incubators and stuff like that, which that would be tremendous. And then the third one, I think, is just that community aspect of it, right? Like a lot of the times, Nepal doesn't have that brand recognition that other communities have.
Right.
A lot of people might not even know about Nepal. And so how do we really bring, given the potential that we have, how do we bring Nepali talent and Nepali excellence into the conversation, right? And how do we, because at the end, and I kind of think of like TGND is the orchestrator, but the talent is our community, right? Exactly. And so how do we mobilize our community to bring in, this talent excellence and cultivate that thought leadership to make a bigger impact?
Right. These are good things. And I think, what I'm also super excited about is some of the collaborations that are going to happen. And, as we transition, I think there's a few bigger events that are in the pipeline that I'm hoping we can pull off and so on. So super exciting. So I'm hoping very soon the wish list is going to be a reality, and we'll be able to, share with everybody in terms of being a part of that. Next, Sabin, do you have a question for me while we're here?
Yeah, one question I always like to ask is, like, what is one book that you've read that you would say, that made an impact in life and you recommend to others?
Sure. I read a lot of books.
Even better.
Mostly business books. There's one that is not a business book that actually I've never been able to forget. And I think, in a way, it sort of relates to, why I'm doing this. You would say it's called Tuesdays with Maury. I don't know if you know about it or not. Basically, the gist of it is this person's professor, I think, is dying. He finds out about it, so he starts spending time with that professor. And he just the learning, the wisdom of it and the life sharing and everything को लागि अनि so simple, so so profound in a way, right? मलाई चाहिँ more than anything else, I think it is again a reminder that life is really short. And that's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, right? Instead of something else. Because I really want to work in something that has an impact, and this definitely has an impact. It is a lot of work that has all of that. And two, I think sometimes the book is also again a reminder that some of the things that we seek are just around us. They're so simple and so on. While we're looking for life-changing, complex things, they're not, right? Even the whole ethos of TGND is so simple, right? It's not really new. It's not त्यस्तो केही पनि छैन. It's a very simple idea of networking and coming together. तर we're hoping that magic happens.
Yeah.
Right? So again,
because I think at the end of the day, TGND is at its core, it's community building, right? It's something that we've been doing since one person, the person number one met person number two back, however many thousands of millennia ago, right? And it's just taking that concept and reapplying it in today's context, right?
Exactly. And one thing I guess just to add to that, right? 2024 of course, a lot of people are successful, Nepalis or Rupani. What I really also think is if you are successful without helping anybody, without एउटा कसैलाई पनि help नगरिकन, if you're successful, of course, yeah, like good for you. But so what? जस्तो लाग्छ के?
Yeah.
Right? भन्नु खोजेर चाहिँ not to discount somebody that, obviously people work hard to achieve success, all of it, that maybe it's time for us to also take somebody along, right?
Yeah.
Maybe just one person as we sort of move up that rank, as we sort of, do amazing things in life. Maybe it's time, it's high time we start thinking about others and how do we pull others on it, okay? So.
No, I'm funny you mentioned Tuesdays with Maury. I have not read that book, but I'm currently reading another book that's called 5 Regrets of the Dying. It's a palliative care professional who kind of writes about conversations she's had with kind of her people in her care.
Right.
And one of the things, like in terms of like we're talking about community building here, one of the things it says like I wish I'd spend more time with friends, right? Like and really like built a community around themselves, because at the end of the day, with happiness only exists if it can be shared in a sense, right? So like, and so how do you really cultivate that? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think Sabin, I'm sure you relate to it as well, right? Whether it's virtual or in person community, you, me, or some of our chapter leaders, hubblies, whoever it is, right? We're like the catalyst, right? We sort of try to organize something, people show up, and then in a little bit we could almost we could step out. We're not needed, okay? Because that sort of we're
just there to light the spark, but like we're not the main show, and that's the orchestrator, right? Like we just put the chemicals in the beaker, but the reaction,
that's beautiful, okay? Because otherwise it's हाम्रो यति धेरै common with each other in terms of Nepalis and so on. But there's also a lot of factors that prevent us from being together, right? Whether it's our career paths, whether it's our आफ्नो career, friend circle, whatever it is. So कतिजनाहरू चाहिँ same city मा 10 years 15 years बसेर पनि भेट्या हुँदैन. They don't know
Yeah.
they exist, right? So you bring them together for whatever reason, oideको लागि TGND भन्नु as an excuse.
And
Or you-
LinkedIn still exists, right? And it's still hard to find.
right. तर त्यो, it's like, so many people, they just, like get along like crazy. Like, they're going to be friends. They're going to collaborate. Yeah. It's like amazing to see. So I love that. And I hope we can really, really continue to be that catalyst.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I would say maybe a few, rapid fire round, just a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
What's been like, what's been the biggest change for you, once you got married?
Biggest change for me once I got married. That's one of the things I was actually talking with Siobhan is like, because people ask me, like, what's changed? I'm like, nothing's really changed. Now we have paperwork. Now we have paperwork. But the big most of the big parts, and this is for good, like have stayed the same.
Right.
After marriage, we still like each other. That's, I think, the biggest thing that I like that stayed the same. So not much. I'm like trying to think, but I'm blanking out. Yeah.
But I'm glad you still like each other. Favorite book?
The book that I've reread a couple of times is called The Almanac by Naval Ravikant.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite books, and it just takes a lot of a lot of the fluffy concepts that I feel like a lot of us kind of think through and kind of work past, but it boils it down into a framework, which I really, really appreciate. And one of the things that, I'm a huge personal finance enthusiast, I would say. And to take the idea of compound interest and from kind of like the numbers aspect of like, hey, like if you have a 10% return, you invest $100, next year you'll have 100, like you'll have 110, and then you have to have, like, you'll have 121, and so on and so forth. But taking that concept of compound interest and converting it into, if I invest like time today to learn one thing, tomorrow I can build on that thing, right? Or if I invest time in a relationship today, tomorrow I can, that relationship itself will grow, right? And so really taking, simple concepts like that and applying it to different parts of life and allowing you to be intentional or think intentionally about it. I feel like that's one of my favorite things. And that's one of why I really like rereading this book. Because every time I reread it, I get something else out of it, right? Because it maps to, like, it's also like, what am I going through life right now, and then how can I apply these concepts back?
He has a way of, framing things in a certain way that just makes sense, right?
Yep.
So good choice on that. Next holiday destination, if you can take a holiday.
That is a good question. I want to say Ireland. Siobhan, her family's in Ireland, and I've, like, for the longest time, I've always wanted to visit Ireland. And so that, I would say, is probably my next holiday destination. Like with visas and everything, being the salt, that's one place that I'd love to go.
Amazing. What's favorite त नभनौँ तर something's a new dish you've tried.
New dish I've tried. A new dish I've tried. I recently tried, so in Minneapolis we have some really, really great Laotian restaurants.
Right.
And so recently I tried some skewers at Ganoi, shrimp skewers, chicken skewers, and so on and so forth. And that is some of the best. Like it feels simple, but it's some of the best food that I've had to date. So
amazing!
It's simple but effective.
So whenever people visit Minnesota, they should definitely
they should go to Ganoi or Kaluna. Those are the two restaurants that particular chef manages.
Awesome. I think those were my questions. Sabin, thank you so much for everything. You know how grateful I am for you as a person, individual Pani, separate from TGND, the person you are, you know, the person you are at TGND, right? In terms of really helping this community grow from, zero to what we are and the next phase. So grateful for everything you do, and even coming on this podcast to sharing, our ideas in terms of the next phase and so on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And with TGND, thank you very much for kind of starting the community and allowing us to bring our collective focuses to solve the community problem and really provide that platform to showcase the Poly excellence. So really appreciate it.
Perfect. And to all our subscribers, please like, share, let us know what you think. Once you hear this episode, please tell us what you think. If you agree, disagree, whatever it is, we want to know learn from you, hear from you. So please reach out. Thank you.